Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's webinar. We are in session 3 of the FDOT traffic plan series. And this week we're going to take a look at chapters 3 and 4. Chapter 3 is sheet layout and clipping, and chapter 4 kind of goes along with it, and we're going to look at creating some miscellaneous sheets. So chapter 3 talks about sheet clipping. Sheet clipping, the recommended workflow from the CAD office is to use GeoPack's plan and profile sheet clipping. Let's take a look at how do I even get to the sheet clipping tool. You can go to GeoPack, Road, Plans Preparation, and come down here to Plan Profile Sheet Composition. So that's one way of getting to it. The second way of getting to it is from the road tools, and it's pop that up here. The fourth one over, that's plans preparation. So all those tools that I got on the menu, I can hold that and I can get to them from here as well. So that's the plan profile sheet composition tool. And the other option, and I've gotten to where I hardly ever use the road toolbox anymore. We do have traffic plans down here, but the roadway plans is where you will find the clip plan sheets on the FDOT plans development task menus. So here's the tool. We'll go through step by step each of the different settings that are in this dialog. But the first thing that I need is to have the files ready for us to use to clip. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do is we created in chapter 1 a border file. So let's take a look at opening that file up. And I'm going to open this border file up. And what I want to do is I want to set the plot scale of this file from 50 to 1. The next thing that I want to do is create my clip file. Basically, we have a file that's set up out there for you. It's clip.sp01.dgn, and this file is used to house all of our clip borders. So let's take a look at creating that. So let's go to Actions, Create Files, and with the roadway control file open, I want to go down to the signing and pavement marking files, because that just happens to be the example we're going to use. You could do this. This clip example is in all of the different disciplines. So I can go clip borders. It's going to create, and I already have one. So we'll just use clip SPO2. Okay, so that was created successfully. I'm going to tell it OK. And then I'm going to open the file. And plot scale 50 is fine. And close, create edit. All right, so now that I'm in my clip file, I need to take a look at, okay, what am I going to clip? I've got different ways that I can clip my files. One way is using the clip SP file as my motif, and I would reference everything into my clip file. The motif file is a quote-unquote settings file, and basically what this file is for is what files do I want to attach to all of my plan sheets. And the second thing is what levels do I want turned on and off. And it's also, when it's looking at the references, it's looking how it has been attached. Okay, so all of these settings it's looking at from the motif. I don't in any way want you guys to get confused that motif files means that everything is going to be live nested. That is not what a motif file truly is. It's just a settings file. And depending on how I set up my motif file, I can work with it from there. So the standard way is to reference everything to this clip file, place your borders, and then clip the sheets. The second option that I have is to come in here and change my settings under sheet layout from the current design file, which would be what I would want to use for the way I just described, or I can use motif files in order to set up all those settings. And it'll use the files that I tell it to in order to get all of those settings from. Okay, and that is the second option, customize with motif files. My third option is the way that most people want to clip their sheets, and that is to use the live nesting method. I would want to create a motif file, and we have standard file names for these, and basically use that file to attach all of my references, all of my settings, okay, and then attach that motif file to my current clipboarder file and use the current design settings. When I reference it, I'm going to be using live nesting, and I'll turn that on so that when it clips, it's going to live nest that motif file to all of my plan sheets, and then I'll have the ability to go back into my motif file, turn levels on and off as I may need to throughout the life of the project, and then it's done for all of my plan sheets without me having to go through each plan sheet. So I'm going to show you how to do that method, and that's the way that it's set up within the manual for you guys to create your sheets. And of course, if you ever want to use one of the other options that I'm not showing you, you guys can give us a call here in the CAD office. So I'm going to leave this set to use current design file. And the next thing I'm going to do, I need that motif file that we were talking about. Motif file for plan sheets. Okay, and I'm going to create that and open it. Tell that okay, close, create, edit. All right, so this is the file, the MTPL SP for assigning paint markings, motif file that I need to reference all of the attachments that I want to be shown on my plan sheets. Okay, so signing in that folder, I definitely want to see my design file. That's pretty much it out of the signing folder, so I'm going to tell it to open. And I'm going to select the default model. I like to turn off the display raster references unless I have rasters. Okay, tell that okay. I also need to see the roadway, right? I got to see where they're putting all the edges of pavement. So I'm going to attach, I'm going to go up to roadway, and I'm going to attach the design file. I also need to see the alignment. Okay, and my alignment is going to be in between both of these files. The line work itself is in the DSG NRD, and the tick marks and stationing is in the align RD. All right, so I'm going to tell that to open. Pay attention to the file name. The alignment file name, I want to make sure I get the right stationing. I want to see that at 50 scale. That's what we're going to clip it as, is 50. Okay, and attach that. And then my design file, I want to make sure I have the default. Tell that okay. All right, I'd also like to see my topo file, and that's in survey. So then I can come back to survey. I'm going to open that. Tell that okay. All right, so having all of these things in here, I can fit my view. And I like to go in and kind of clean this up a little bit further because there's a lot here. My project is really just this area down here. So I'm going to grab all of these files and I'm going to clip those references. Okay, so that should clean it up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to go ahead and turn off some of these levels. I know that I don't need view way out here. Some of these I'm going to leave on. Actually, I'll just leave the rest of it. Okay, so now I have my motif file set up the way that I want it. I want to make sure I go over here to File and save my settings. All right, then I need to look at creating my clip borders. So let's move back over to my clip SP file. So I'm going to hit Open. And we were looking at 02. Well, the first thing that I need to do is I need to attach that motif file so I know what can tell it what references that I want. All right, so I'm going to reference the motif file I just created. So that's this MTPLSP01. I'm going to open that. I want the default. Two things that I need to make sure that I do here. One, change it to live nesting with a nesting depth of 1. I don't recommend that you go any further than just the 1. The other thing that I need to make sure I do is that under this display overrides that I change this from allow to never. Basically, if I go into my plan sheets later and it's set to allow, then what it does is if I change things in that file, I can break the link to the motif file. So I want to make sure that I make it so that that can't happen. So that's why we're changing this to never, because once I break those links back to the motif file, then it's broke. You have to go back and do this whole process again. Okay. So live nesting is turned on, it's set to never, and I'm going to tell it OK, and then fit my view so I can see what I've got. So my project, you can see down in here, this is where my project runs. I've got some milling and resurfacing that's going on down on baseline 98 down here, and then State Road 61, they're realigning it. So I'm going to clip for this demonstration the State Road 61 alignment. So let's start taking a look at the different options that I have through here. First, we've got the file. The file option takes us into our sheet library. And the sheet library has, I'm going to open this, it basically has all of the settings that I need for all the different types of files that are set up within the library. It gives me things like the sheet border information. It allows me to either place my borders in each file themselves, or it gives me an option to place it once in a reference file. It is a good idea. It depends on how you want to look at it. It doesn't matter which way you want to do these. You can place them once in each file and use Sheet Navigator, or you can place them once in a reference file. It doesn't make a difference. It got started once upon a time because it was created smaller file sizes whenever we used the border files versus putting those cells in all those files, but now it doesn't make a difference which way you want to use it. All right, so I now have a border file selected. Some other things that are in here that you may want to take note of: grid alignment, let's see, any of the sheet information. If you want to use the clipping tool to fill out your sheet, this is where that information has been set up. It should be fine simply at default. The biggest one that I would like to pay attention to here is this offset from cell origin. Sometimes when you go through the process of clipping your sheets, you'll make some changes and then your sheet clip won't wind up centered on your sheet in the sheet composition section, and I'll show you that in just a minute. But if that's the case, what you'll want to do is come in here and modify this value for the X offset from the origin. The origin is at the bottom right corner of the border above the title block. This X offset, you need to kind of do the math, see how wide your border is, how much is your clip border, and then whatever the difference is, divide that by 2, and that's what this offset right here should be. And all of this is at a scale of 1. Okay, so that's important to remember. So I'm going to save this out since I made a change to it. I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to move this to my project directory, the projects, and I'm going to put it in the SYMB directory. Anytime you make changes to any of the resources, whether it's a PSL file, the DDB file, whatever it may be, you want to save that resource to your local project and work from there. All right, so I can exit out of the sheet library now, and I'm going to start over here and start working across. All right, these icons here, I can get to the same information, the same tools by going to the Tools menu. I think most people use the icons. So the first one is Sheet Composition. Under the Sheet Composition, I have 4 options. I can use a station overlap if I want to. I can use the by station range inside out, outside in. These are not commonly used. I think the biggest ones that we use most often are either station overlap or this radial. The radial is what we need to use for any of the sets of plans that we have that use a tab sheet. So all of the traffic plans have tab sheets because we quantify things by sheet. So we don't want to see any overlap on those sheets. Okay, so I'm going to use the option by station range radial, and it's going to tell me that based upon the size of my clip border that's set up in my library, it tells me that I have a maximum drawing area of 750 feet. A lot of times that's fine, and that's what you guys clip with. It does have in the PPM Volume 2, Chapter, I want to say 10, with the plan sheets, it does have information there on the different scales for your alignments, and it has under there for 50 scale to put 700 per sheet. To get that 700 feet per sheet, I would want to go with this, put my station range down here to 700. Okay, so that will create clip borders for me that are 700 feet long. That will change this horizontal value here automatically, and it'll take 25 feet off of each end to give me the 700. Once I have the sheet composition set up, the next thing I want to do is lay out my clip borders. So I'm going to click on Layout Sheets. I want to go in and make sure that I can see my GPK file, and I can get to that by going to Road, User Preferences, Kogo Preferences. Aha. I want to tell it where is my GPK, and it should be in my roadway directory. And tell that OK, tell that OK. And there's my GPK file. And I recommend setting that up so that you can look back at roadways. That way, if anything changes, you guys have the latest and greatest of what's in their GPKs for your alignments. So I'm going to double click to select that. The next thing that I need to do is look at what am I clipping. Okay, for signing and pavement markings or lighting plans, we'd want to use the multiple sheets option because we want to see everything that's in the project. For signalization plans, you may want to switch this over to a single sheet because really we're just looking at intersections, and I could place a single sheet at each intersection as I go, and I don't have to clip everything in between. So I'm going to use multiple sheets. I'm going to double click anywhere within this port information. And a port basically is the reference or the clip border into a portion of your plan sheet. In this case, we're doing single plan sheets. I want to make sure that I grab the chain that I want. I'm going to use CLCon, which is the name of the alignment that's running down the baseline of this new construction here. And I also want it to center up. So this offset right here, I want it to be centered on that alignment. So I'm going to leave that at 0. If you had a baseline or center line of construction, but I've seen where baselines are, like maybe they're out here in the ditch area, you could offset from that baseline so that it centers up on your roadway. Okay, and that's what that offset would be used for. So I've got my alignment determined. The next thing I do is I need to look at my begin and end station, and I'm going to leave it to the entire alignment. The extend option, what that does is it allows you to clip further back on either end from the station that you start with. All right, once you have that defined, you want to click on Layout Sheets. And notice that I now have my clip borders, and this is where my sheets will be clipped at. Close that. The next thing you may want to look at, and this actually looks like it came in pretty good. There isn't any portion in here that I'm not seeing part of the proposed work that I've got going on. Sometimes when you use radial and you go around curves, it will clip off a portion that where this this V comes in here, this wedge, it'll be down into your roadway. And in that case, you want to go to this fourth icon, Modify Sheets. And under Modify Sheets, I can move things around. I can dynamically shift things, snap to the different station tick marks so that you get it on even stations. It will follow the alignment if I were to dynamically move this. Notice that it's moving along my alignment. I can also come in here and change my offsets, make how much of my drawing is shown on the sheet. So instead of it being the full 700, I can change this in here. You can also use MicroStation commands to modify any of these clip borders. Clip borders are set. I'm going to go in here and use the sheet number manager. And the reason that I want to do this is a lot of times I've seen where we've got two things going on. One is that if I leave my sheet numbers set without the zeros in front of the 1 through 9, then if I have more than 10, then my sheets kind of get mixed up and they're not exactly in order. So I'm just going to drag this. You can also hit Shift or Control or any of those options to select the different sheets. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to go to this second option down here to edit the sheet number. So any of these sheets, I can add a prefix of 0 to them. Oh, delete. Okay, there we go. That's what I wanted. So I can add a prefix of 0 so that they will be in consecutive order like they're supposed to be. The other thing that I have seen is that they like to create yours. You put one per sheet and then you go in here and change these so that it has the matching sheet number. And in that case, I could do the same thing and I can add, let's say it starts on sheet 6. Okay, so I can say, okay, add to this 5 to my sequence number and tell this okay. And then it will add in, it will change my sheet number, but it'll stay in the same order, if that makes sense. When I exit this, it's going to ask me to save the changes. I'm just going to say yes. Okay, so now it has the intelligence of the sheet number on there, and I'm ready to go ahead and clip my sheets. That is the third option in for clip sheets. And basically, I want to go in and set my directory. I can use the browse option to browse to my project. Okay, and I want them to go into the signing folder. Okay, and then I'm going to give my sheet a prefix. The standard prefix is Plan RD for plan sheets. And notice that it's picking up my sheet range number in order to number the sequencing of the sheet names. I like to do things one sheet per file. You can modify this. I don't recommend more than maybe 10. That's just a personal preference. I want to use the active model, and I can also select which sheets that I want to start. You know, I don't have to clip all of them, but most of the time we do. But it may be that later you add another sheet to this and you only want to clip that one sheet because you've got the rest of them in here. You can do that as well. I'm not going to worry about the label annotations. You can use Sheet Navigator to do that. So once I have this set up, I'll hit Process Sheets. And yes, it's read only. That's the cell library. And it's going to run through the process and the screen's going to flicker. And that's where it's looking at the references, clipping it, getting it into the border. It placed the border into the border file, and it'll go through all of the sheets. So depending on how many sheets you have, this could be pretty quick, or it may take a few minutes. When it's finished, it takes you back out and you'll be in the clip file again where you started. All right, I'm going to close this and I'm done with the plan sheet composition tool. I'm going to go ahead and open one of those plan sheets. So now you can see I have got all of my references are attached. I do want to turn off, and I should have turned this off first, and that's the clip border. I typically don't want to see the clip border. I have a level off in my design file. I don't have alignments. So looking at this, I see, okay, I have some things that I need to go back and fix. I've got levels that are on, I have levels that are off, and it's not quite right. So what I want to do is I want to go back to, I'm going to open up that motif file. And when it opens up, I want to zoom in here and say, yep, sure enough, I don't have that turned on. I'm going to look at my design file. Topo, there may be things that I want to turn off in here. I don't need to see that. Whatever in here that you don't want to see, you can go ahead and turn off. This is one way to do it. The other way to do it is to come in here and right click. And like, I don't want to see this. So I can turn that turning radius off. I can turn this non-plotting level off. I want to leave the sign panels there, the existing ones. Maybe I don't want to see those slabs. Okay, that's a fence. So most of this other stuff, it can stay. So I'll say, okay, that's good. And then save my settings. And then let's move back over to my plan sheet. So the things that I turned off are now turned off, and I didn't save settings in this file. And I'm going to hit Control F to save those settings. You can also go to File, Save Settings. And there you have it in a nutshell. And at that point, then I can come in and I can use Sheet Navigator, pick all of these up, and I can change them all at one time, putting in the state, road, county, job number, sheet description, etc. with Sheet Navigator. Is there a link to download the entire traffic plans manual you have been using? No. And the reason I say that is, I mean, you can use the one that's out there on our training page. However, it's being updated as we go. So what I'm actually teaching isn't exactly what's in the book. We are taking all three manuals that are currently out there and combining them into one manual that can be used to teach all three classes. Because most of the chapters, except for one, are the same in all three manuals. Key sheets, sheet clipping, etc. I didn't understand the display override setting consequences. What do you mean by breaking the link? In other words, what I just did, I was able to go to the motif file and able to turn levels off and then come back into my plan sheet and those levels were turned off. I didn't have to do that in every single sheet. I can go to all four of those sheets that I just created and those levels are turned off for me. Okay, so it's a way of doing it. Like if I had 50 sheets, I do not want to go into 50 plan sheets and turn levels on and off. Having that ability saves a lot of time. If I come into this file and I start turning levels on and off, and I override the settings that are out there in my motif file, I break that link to the motif file. So therefore, I cannot go back to my motif and turn levels on and off for that file any longer. It's a manual process from then on. Okay, that's what I meant by breaking the link. The link is it knows what the settings are in that reference, so therefore it uses those settings. Placement of match lines. If you wanted to use match lines, you can. Match lines, it's a different setting for the sheet. Let me bring that back up really quick. I have plan single. There's also a plan single with match lines. You can also, if you know, a project where it'll fit and you can get the details in on a dual sheet. Most times we can't because we got signs sitting out there, but you can use the dual as well as dual with match lines. Okay, so they're out there. It's just not the option that I happen to pick. Will this process work on cutting sheets on an interchange project with multiple baselines? Yes, you can go through. You just have to know that when you clip it, you've got to pick the baseline that you're going to be using. Then once you've done that, then you can go in and use a different baseline, say it's for a ramp or whatever it may be, clip along those, look at the stationing, modify your clip borders, make sure so that you can put in your match lines. It can be done, yes. And then you'll want to look at the sequence, the order, because you want your main line first, and then you want your ramps and whatever sequence that your plan sheets need to be in. Make sure that your sequence on the clip borders follow suit, so that you can modify them if necessary, but make sure that it all flows together so that they're in the right order. You can turn levels off any way that you see fit. It's asking, can you turn on and off levels using Reference Manager also by selecting all the reference file names and then going to level settings? I haven't done that in a long time, but I imagine you can. Asking if the alignment can be turned off in the original file. Yes, it's a very good possibility, and I just don't have it set up. The alignment's out there, guys. It should show up. It's just a matter of going to all the files, finding it, and getting it turned on. Next thing that I wanted to show you before I run out of time, Chapter 4 talks about some miscellaneous sheets. I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to go ahead and create a couple of files for us to use so that I can create other things and show you some more resources that are out there for you guys to use to create your sheets. One of them is general notes. General notes, we typically have in almost every component set of plans. They have a GNNT and then whatever the discipline is. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and create this file for the signing and payment markings. I'm going to create that. When I open this file, I have a choice in here, and it's personal preference. For me, I always set my scale to 1 whenever I am working in something that has no scaling whatsoever. There's no detail that has to be to scale. I'll put in a 1. And it's important to remember this because plot scale is needed for Sheet Navigator. I'll put this aside for a second. The other thing is that people sometimes don't connect all the dots. I have 3 scales when I'm looking at creating these sheets. All right, I have my plot scale, which I need for Sheet Navigator to put my digital signature note on the end. Then I have my drawing scale, okay, which by default is set to 1 to 1. Okay, so if I always set my plot scale to 1 for these kinds of sheets, I don't have to deal with the drawing scale. Okay, the third scale is whenever I come in and I start placing cells. By default, if I come in here and I go to Actions, Sheets, Plan Sheet, and I place a cell, notice that by default now it is at a scale of 1. I need to make sure that I have all 3 of those set the same, or things don't necessarily always come out the way that we want them to. All right, and while I have the Create File project open, I'm also going to create another file, and it's under the Signals, and it's Master Arm Detail and Tables. And I'm going to go ahead and create that one, and I can open the file or not. I'm just going to tell it OK. Because I want to go ahead and show you, while we're in this file, go ahead and show you the general notes. There's a couple of different ways to get to general notes. We want to link them and use a Link Data Manager. I can go to Actions and Link Data Manager, and that will open it up for me. I'm going to create a new link, and I can go to Create New from Template, and we have in here some project notes. There is not a standard setup anywhere set of quote-unquote general notes for the rest of the disciplines. The reason for that is because we really want these project notes to be specific. There's a few of them in roadway that's in the PPM, and that's the only reason this file exists. But we're going to use this just as an example of how to do this. So I have my project notes. I can name this as general notes if I want to. You can name it anything you want. LDM doesn't care. And I want to make sure that I put it in my discipline directory. Okay, so I'm going to save that. All right, I can give it a description in here if I want to. It's up to you. The rest of this I can leave at the default, the max lines. Don't worry about putting something in. Max lines would come into play if it's a text file and I want it to break into another column. Then I can go in here and say maybe 50 lines or 100 lines or however many fits on my sheet. And then it'll break into another column on my sheet so that it fits. Remember, I put everything at a scale of 1, so I don't need to toggle this on for my drawing scale. But if you do happen to use a 50 scale or a 40 scale or whatever it may be, you can turn this on to use the drawing scale. And this is going to be a relatively small file. I can update the graphics on file open. This is a really nice feature. However, just know that if you have a lot of links in a particular file, it takes longer for you to open that file. All right, so I'm just going to tell it OK. Notice that the notes are now on my cursor, and I can place them in my plan sheet border. If I need to modify them, I can right-click and tell it to open the source. And I don't want it to be project notes, I want it to be general notes. All right, I can come in here and modify any of this information with whatever you need for the sign paint markings or your lighting or your signal plans. Put those notes in here. We also have this, I grabbed the TXT, we also have this in a Word document format that you can use. I'm going to save the file, exit, right-click, and open it or update it so it updates the information. Like I said, I have this in a Word doc. You can also go in here when you create a link. If you have a document out there, I can click on this select existing file, and it allows me to pick from an Excel file, text files, or doc files. Okay, so I can select any of these type of documents, select my notes, or maybe it's a table or whatever it may be. If I already have it and I can select an existing file, the kicker here is it has to be in your project directory. If it's not in your project directory, then LDM is going to prompt you to save it to your project directory. Okay, let me cancel that and cancel that. All right, so that's creating the general notes. Once I finish this, then I would come in here, use Sheet Navigator, fill out all this information. Okay, the other file that I was going to show you guys. Oh, and I'm going to open this file. Again, I want to set this to 1. The other file that I want to create, it's a standard MassDarm tabulation sheet. And it's one that we do have supported through LDM. First thing that I want to do is place the plan sheet. There's an option over, now let's create a new file. There it is, place plan sheet. I can get that from the roadway plans. Or I can go to actions, or you can open up the cell library. All right. So I'm going to place the plan sheet in the file. That's the first thing I want to do. The next thing I want to do is take a look at what I have in here with LDM. If I hit create new from template, there is a lot of information here under sheets. These are, for the most part, for traffic plans. There's special mast arms, there's span signs, there's pole data, there's cantilever signs, monotubes. So there's a lot of tables that you guys have in your plans that I have a template to get you started with. Okay, this one we're going to use it's the standard mast arm tabulation, and I'm going to tell this OK. Again, it's going to ask me to save this to my signals, and I would save it. I can set a description if I want. I'm going to tell this sheet 1. You don't have to worry about with our templates any of this information. I'm going to use the graphic settings of standard and tell it OK. The rest of that's all right. It's going to take a second to process that, and then it's going to show up with your cursor. Okay. These are all set up so that you can snap to, let me get to my snaps, so that I can snap to this top left corner of the blue border, and it will place these in here just like you need it to be. Okay, so now I have a template that I can then open, right-click, open source, and start filling this information in. This particular one I showed you on purpose because I wanted you to see that we also have, there's a drawing that goes in up here at the top of this sheet, and we have that in this roadway cell library. So if I go to element cells and I attach the roadway cell library, the reason it's in the roadway cell library is because everything that has to do with sheets is in this library. But if I go down here to SH, you're going to notice that there's more than just sheet borders in here. Okay, there's guide signs, there's the standard mast arm tabulation. So this goes with, and I've tried to name things so that the file and the cell, you can see it goes together. So I want to double click this. It's going to make it as active for my placement, as well as activate my place cell tool. It's on my cursor, and the origin has been set up so that I can snap to that same location as I did with LDM to place that cell in here. And then again, I could come in here, I got to fill all of this information out, but then I can come in and use Sheet Navigator in order to label the rest of the sheet. And that is pretty much all there is with chapters 3 and 4. There's resources out there for you guys to use. We have sheet layouts set up for you as far as to work with the GeoPack sheet clipping tool. We also have templates and LDM that you guys have available to use in order to get you started with a lot of the tables that are required. If there's anything out there that you guys use all the time that I've missed, let me know. If the table is in the design standards or the PPM, we have it sitting in here for you to use so that you're not having to recreate and regenerate this information. All right, I've got one question here that I didn't answer. When updating the motif, the plan sheet sometimes does not show the changes from the motif. How do I fix this? Okay, that's where something has happened and you've lost that link. The only way to fix that is to, number one, make sure you save settings in the motif before you go looking in the other files. You have to save settings before you exit that file. But if you have saved settings, it's not changing anything, the only way you can fix that is to reclip. Okay, that's all the questions that were out there. If you guys have anything else, you can send us an email. We will be getting this posted out there on YouTube. We'll take all these questions and I'll get them answered and we'll have them in a pretty format and it'll get posted out there on our website along with the video. If you have any questions, you can contact me, or you can also contact cad.support@dot.state.usfl.us. That being said, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. We will see you next week.